Welcome to Women's Wealth, the podcast with me, Joanne. My mission is to educate, inspire, and empower you all to step into your own life of wealth. That feeling of being so rich in your mind, body, and soul. I'm so happy to have you here. Let's get straight into it. Hello, beautiful people. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back, whether you're listening on your podcast streaming website or over on YouTube, you're watching. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know I always start saying thank you, but it does mean the world to me. So thank you so much for joining me. And today's episode is inspired by my trip home to the UK last week. And I was a little bit sad. Now, I had an amazing time with my friends and my family. I did some beautiful things. Went out into the Peak District, and funny story, car broke down, but didn't break down. So we're kind of stranded, but we weren't stranded. Managed to see the countryside, saw cows, sheep, alpacas, all of the above. And it's always really nice going home to see my family. I do miss them a lot. But what I did notice was the state of my hometown. And I can only talk about my hometown, but from speaking to other people who have recently visited home as well, I feel like there's a lot going on in the UK at the moment. And without sounding like Donald Trump, I don't know what they can do to make Britain great again. And I'm going to share some of the reasons why I feel this and what gave me these impressions. Now, if you live in the UK, you'll be used to this. So it's easy for me coming in as a person, obviously I'm from the UK, it's my home, but I haven't lived there full time for 8 years. And the last time I was there was last July. And I've noticed a huge shift in the vibration of my hometown. So again, if you're in a different city, I would love to hear what it's like there, because I can't compare, can't contrast, but from what I've seen and what I've heard, it's very much the same. And it's very sad because there are some very beautiful places in the UK. Like I've just said, we went on a nice walk in the Peak District, but my hometown, when I walked to town, was like something from a dystopian novel, movie. It was scary. So one of my first days, I went for a walk into town. My mum had already warned me, like, there's nothing there. Now, when I was younger, it was bustling. There were all the shops, H&B, Topshop, Miss Selfridge, all of the things, a full shopping centre. Now, there was nothing. There was Starbucks, there was a Superdrug, and I feel like every other shop in the shopping centre was closed. So that was sad to see. And my mum also warned me as well. So I had my noise cancelling headphones on. I was ready to go, listening to my audiobook. She's like, make sure you take them off as you enter the town. So I was like, okay. And she was like, yeah, it's not really safe up there. And I was like, even in the middle of the afternoon? And she was like, yeah, just take them off. So I did, and I'm glad I did. As soon as I entered the town, there was police, people getting arrested, they'd stolen somebody's phone, there was a fight, all going on outside Greg's. I don't know if this happened in the fight or it was before. The window was smashed. So many homeless people, like I said, derelict shops, people that were walking around, not very friendly at all. And I used to pride myself when I went back that I'd be in my hometown and just hear, "Hey, Duck, hey, Duck, hey, Duck." Everyone calls you Duck. None of that. And obviously being away, I can really notice it, because it wasn't like that in July. It was going that way, but it wasn't. And it was really sad. And it really got me thinking to how people live and keep themselves happy and calm and positive when around them is so much craziness. And when we look at it on a wider scale, we have our towns, our villages, our cities that have, their own problems. And then we have the country, and then we have the world. And how are we, or how do people who may be feeling anxious, we've just come out of a global pandemic, which I'll talk about as well. And there's so many things going on. There's politics, there's wars, there's the daily news, there's natural disasters, and it is a lot. There is a lot going on. And as I was walking around as well, I was thinking, gosh, I really want to do a podcast on this, because I feel like it helps people to sort of realize and come together and think, okay, so yes, all of this is going on, but we still have each other. We can still call on each other. We can still listen to a podcast and get some advice and see what other people say. And that's exactly what I want to do with you today. I was also reflecting when I was thinking about the podcast on the last few years and events that have happened in my timeline that affected me, and going back to 2001 when we had 9/11. And I think that's the first time that I probably started to pay attention to what was going on in the wider world. And we were then introduced to the war on terrorism, which has never really gone away. And having that fear of travel put into our heads, and all the extra security at airports, and all the things that spurred, the other attacks that associated with the people that did that. And we had the 7/7 bombings in London, and other things that have gone on, and we've lived through that. We've lived through wars. There's still wars, multiple going on right now. There's this threat, if you watch social media and the news, of World War III hanging over us, nuclear bombs, and we're living through that. And then we have 2020, the pandemic, and all of the things that went along with that. And I feel like we're still in the hangover of the pandemic, and people are still talking about the pandemic and how it was handled, and the vaccine and anti-vaxxers, and all of those things that we've had to live through as millennials, and then we're expected to navigate our own lives and just live normally. It's crazy. It is crazy. And I just want to share some inspiration of what I do when I am feeling overwhelmed in this crazy world. And I hope it helps you as well when you're walking around your hometowns and maybe feeling a little bit sad because of what they look like now compared to what they used to look like, but really allowing yourself to come inwards. So let me go through the things that I want to share with you today. And let me know if it does help, or let me know if, if you feel like you have no one to talk to, please reach out, because I'm here for it. This is why I do what I do. I want to share, I want to help, I want to inspire. So first of all, take a moment to accept the anxiety that this gives you. Now, this might seem counterintuitive that, we don't want to be anxious, and, we don't want to go into the town that makes us feel unsafe. But research, when I've obviously done a lot, I used to be a very anxious person. Research shows that anxiety becomes more manageable when you turn towards it rather than pushing it away. And I've spoken about this before, but with anxiety and other emotions, what persists, what you resist persists. So just taking a moment and go, okay, I'm feeling anxious because, and then whatever it is that's making you feel anxious, own it. And it might be that you feel scared. It might be that you have no clue what's going to happen next. It might be that, you need to just reflect and think, right, okay, this is a scary time. All of this is going on. And just labeling it, just showing your anxiety. And this is kind of like when you're just anxious, for a job interview, labeling those. Okay, I'm feeling this way. I have a job interview. It's important to me. This is how I feel, and this is how I can help myself. And it's the same on this wider scale. And just labeling it, acknowledging the anxiety, and seeing if you can just let that pass. If there's anything you can physically and mentally do about that particular anxiety or about that particular situation, then do it, write it down, make an action point. So, for example, it might be that you're just anxious about the future and you feel that at the moment, what is going to happen? And I do get that. I was watching a video the other day and it was World War III, is it imminent? And it does worry me. It scares me. And as someone that used to suffer badly with anxiety, I could let my mind run riot. So what I did, first of all, I turned the news off because my partner, I know I say this all the time, but he sneaks it on, he gets it on. Turn the news off. Well, I asked him to turn it off and then ask myself the questions. Why am I feeling this way? Because they've just said it's going to be World War III. Is there anything I can do about it? Absolutely not. There isn't. There isn't. What's the worst that can happen? It happens. That's the worst that can happen, other than the things they described. But it fed my anxiety. My mind was going off on a tangent and then pulling things from movies. What's the movie? Is it Terminator? I don't even want to talk about it, but I will because now I've started it. I think it's Terminator when they drop that nuclear bomb and everyone turns into a skeleton. Is that real? Is that Hollywood? Is there any evidence of how that? No, there's not. Okay, so yes, all of this stuff is going on. No, I can't do anything about it. Is what's going on my mind evidence that it's going to happen? No. But I'm just acknowledging it, that this makes me feel uncomfortable and this is why. Also, my next point would be don't go it alone. And of course, people want to be independent, but our brains are actually wired for connection. This is why I love doing this podcast. This is why I love working with other people. I'm an introvert, and sometimes I prefer doing things alone, apart from when it's my mental health, emotional health. I understand that we need to work together. I need to talk about it. I need to feel secure. I need to feel grounded. And talking to someone about what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling can help that. So, a word of caution here, though. There is a difference between talking and venting. So if you are worried about something, just make sure that if you are, I'm going to use the word offloading or sharing. Sharing's better. Make sure that it is a share and not a rant. I'm guilty of this. I will rant and rant and rant, and then I don't make myself feel any better. If anything, I make myself feel worse because I've made myself feel angry. So I was anxious. Now I'm angry about it. So instead, talk. Ask questions. Ask the person that you're talking about, how do you feel about this? Because sometimes, and my partner, my fiance is amazing for me for this, because I ask him and I'm like, are you worried about it? And he'll say no, and I'll say why, and then he'll tell me why he's not worried, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And it's as easy as that, and it calms me down. So you find your person or your people. The reason that I would say don't vent is because venting, like I say, it magnifies, it aggravates, it makes you angry. You're not going to progress. You're not going to move on. You're just going to dump stew on it. And I know occasional venting is good, but find that person that you can vent to, that you can then just stop and go, right, okay, let's talk about it. I've let it off my chest. And now I want to feel better. Now I want to feel good about this situation. So allowing yourself that time to talk, ask people questions. If you're worried about something, ask someone, are you worried about this as well? And they will give you a yes or a no. If it's a yes, I would maybe not even go into too much detail with that person. You need to find the person that says no, that then will listen to you say why you're worried. It's acknowledging your anxiety, and then they're going to help you, because just like my partner, he'll say no because X, Y, Z. Okay, thank you. Next, tend to your nervous system. We do not look after our nervous system enough. Now, this is especially important when there are big things going on. So it might be that you wake up and there's something on your mind from what you watched on the news or read in a newspaper the day before. The worst thing you can do is go and feed that. feed that into your nervous system by checking the newspaper, checking the news again. When it was COVID, COVID times, people call it, don't they? I really did not help myself at the beginning because I was checking, I can't remember the website now, constantly checking the updates of local cases, UK cases, world cases. So every single day, this was going up. It was kind of on my, just on my browser. I just refresh, 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 checking the news, seeing what was going on, checking the deaths, feeding the anxiety until it got too much. And I think I had a break, not a nervous breakdown, I mean, like a crying breakdown. I was scared. There was nothing I could do. We were in lockdown, so I deleted all my apps. I haven't had news apps since then. I used to have them all, BBC, Sky News app, constantly feeding it. And I just was like, right, that is enough because it was throwing my nerves off. So just from doing that meant that I would have a bad day and I'd be anxious all day. And I wasn't doing any of the things that were good for me because I was too busy sitting on my bloody phone checking the stats. So I stopped. I didn't check the news. And I advise you to do the same. If you watch the news, that's your choice. But if you're watching the news and it is affecting you, or you're watching the news and you feel that it does give you some anxiety or you are worried, I know we can't turn a blind eye, so there's a lot going on in the world and we can't just, shut the door and it's not happening. We can acknowledge, but if it's affecting you, then please turn it off. You can find out from other people. You can just, ask one thing, what's going on, if you feel like you need to, because you need to protect your nervous system. We need to tend to our nervous system. So if you're feeling it, go for a walk, go out in nature, do some yoga, meditate, whatever it is that makes you feel good and makes you forget, journal, tidy your house, clean your house. Studies have shown, and I've spoken about this before, the simple act of looking up into the branches, looking at flowers, exposing yourself to nature reduces stress. I think all you have to do is for 1 minute. Do that for 1 minute. Taking a few breaths is going to help you. It's going to connect to your central parasympathetic nervous system and it's going to bring you down. Take short breaks if you can. Practice mindfulness. Go for a walk without your headphones on. Listen to the birds. Listen to the sound of the wind if it hits your ears, if it's windy. Just take a moment. And just, if I feel like everything's getting too much for me, as I'm doing all of those things, when I'm going for a walk, I do my breathing exercises. I inhale, I exhale, I inhale, I exhale, and I say it over and over in my head because when I'm doing that, I cannot think of anything else. And it really helps to bring that down. So in this crazy world, and it sounds selfish, but you need to tend to yourself. You need to tend to your own garden and protect yourself because a lot of these things are out of our control. So we do need to make sure that we don't allow it to control us. The next thing I've jotted down for you guys is to take positive action if you can. So the news is full of so many alarming, distressing events all over the world. And yes, mental health is actually one of them that keeps popping up, the mental health crisis. And again, that's a media phrase, but there is one. And we can see that acting out on social media and, on the news and things that are happening. Mental health is a problem right now. So what we need to do is take positive action to protect our own mental health. When you feel emotional distress or emotional something, how else to explain it, when your stress levels are high and you're emotionally distressed, and sometimes it can give us that boost of, right, I'm going to do something, I'm going to try and do this. So it might make you feel better. Use that emotional energy to do something positive, to take a positive action. So yes, we can't directly help people who are being affected in the war. We can't go there and physically help them, but can you donate? Can you send blood? Can you vote? If you're not happy what's going on in the UK at the moment, use your vote. Okay, this is a positive thing. If you're getting angry and anxious about the state and the politics and the way that the UK looks right now, do something about it and vote. That's it. That you can do that. Whether or not you believe in democracy and votes and if it goes to the right person or not, that's again a belief that you might have, but that is one thing that you can do. Small things each day, and ask yourself when these things come up, can I help? If it's a yes, how can I help? So turning your emotions into a positive. Can I help? How can I help? If the can I help is no, how can I help myself to feel better? And then we go back to tending to your nervous system. So can you see the chain of events of looking after yourself? And if you can, yes, support somebody else in a way that you can. Next, I would say this one, don't get mad at me, but can't even say it, so you can't get mad. Compartmentalize current events. So each time you read something upsetting, your body gets hit of cortisol. So we spend our day in fight or flight. Now, this is what is then putting us off, putting our nervous system, our hormones, our spike in this cortisol. It can become chronic. It can affect your health. The more that we do this, we get this cortisol spike, we're in fight or flight. What can we do? We need to regain control of this. We need to make sure that we're in the right environment. Be proactive about your news consumption, your negative news consumption, the people that you talk to. So if scrolling through your phone and you're following certain people, certain things that are constantly showing you this, then delete it or don't scroll as often. So if you don't want to delete the person, just don't scroll. If you're one for scrolling in the morning on your lunch, this is self-care. Put your phone away. That is self-care. And if you know that that's then, if your phone becomes a trigger, and again, I can speak for this because sometimes I pick up my phone. I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Because I don't want to see that. I need to rest my own mind, and I pick it up when I'm ready. I don't go on my phone at the weekends, and it really does help. So just being able to keep those events at an arm's length. And again, some people might, dislike that view because, yes, I know we can't shut it off and it is going on and people need our support and people are dying and all these tragic and distressing things are happening, but you do also need to protect yourself because it's not going to help if you are also always in fight or flight. And then we're sick and we have mental health issues. And then finally, as I was walking around, I was just thinking about the future. And yes, current events can be and are really upsetting. And, we have so many events over the last, 24 years that we can call upon that have been life changers, whether it's positives or negatives, the introduction of social media, iPhones, smartphones, and, whether you think they're a positive or a negative, and terror attacks and wars, all of these things that have gone on. We need to consider the impact on our history. And even when I was walking around, God, what are people going to say about 2020 in 20 years' time? And, where does that fit in history and how that has changed the way that we look at the world? And is there any positives that could come out of it? For me, a positive was during lockdown that was when a lot of my growth took place because it really allowed me to slow down. And I know a lot of people have said this, and I know lockdown was terrible. People lost businesses, but it really allowed the world to slow down. Maybe, ideally, preferably, we could have done that in a different way without the virus, but it happened. And now we're on the other side of it. So just taking time just to reflect and, is there some things that you learned from that? Is there any positives? And I know there isn't, it's hard. There's never a positive for war. So this doesn't apply to all events, but where you can just say, okay, what did I learn from that? And what positives came from that, if any? And I know we can't have positives from war, but for your own sake and your own sanity living in this crazy world. So as you're walking around your towns and everything is decrepit and there's people begging and drug dealers and drug takers just openly there on the streets, going through these things, and how is this going to affect the future? And can't I can't see that. Can it go any further? There has to be some kind of change around, which is a positive. The war has to end at some point. It is, it's something that we hope and we pray for. So remember that in these chaotic times and these times that have changed so much and we feel unsafe, it is helpful to stay focused on these small things, keeping yourself healthy, really relatively sane. And see if these steps that I've shared with you, I'm just going to run through them again, do help, because we do need it. You're not on your own. We're all in this together, and you do need to look after number one. So remember, accepting your anxiety and any other emotions that come up with that. Don't do it alone. If you need to speak to somebody, you can reach out to me, friends, family, ask them how they feel. Let them help you. Look after your own nervous system. Stop reading the news. Stop scrolling. Stop watching the news if they trigger you. If you feel like this brings all these emotions back, take positive action if you can. Volunteer, donate. See if you can compartmentalize these current events. Keep them where they are to look after yourself, and consider the impact these are going to have on your own history, positive or negative, because we're all living this history together. And I hope this episode helps with anything that you may feel that you're struggling with, and with everything that's going on in the world. And thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. And please, please, please look after yourselves. Speak to somebody. Reach out if any of the things that are going on in the world are bringing that anxiety to you. And I will see you next week.